Welcome. Islam, peace. Let's continue. Santiago, a war cry. That's a Christian rallying cry of Spanish soldiers during the Reconquista and crusading era of medieval Spain. This phrase, Santiago y Sierra Hispana, literally St. James and Seal Spain, or Santiago and closed Spain, was an appeal to St. James to intercede in closing Spain borders from foreign bodies and invasions. And he talk about Moors coming on the coast from beyond the sea, which we already know is America. Contrary to this interpretation, there are other authors who argue that the military order closes in military terms, meaning to engage in combat, attack, close the distance between you and the enemy. St. James became the patron saint. And let's continue to talk more about him. But we got these depictions, allegorical depictions of Santiago, St. James. And they always got him on a white horse killing the Moors. And you got Cortez depiction as St. James killing the Moors. They got him as St. James Matamoros, Moor killer. But today we call these people black people. And the 1500s, that's what we call them Indians. But we dealing with the truth. Statue of St. James Matamoros, or Mokilla, Cathedral of Cordoba, Spain. The Moor Slayer, venerated in the Catholic Church. Another depiction in Cusco School of Peru. This is supposed to be Spain, but why we got depictions of this in Peru? A Moor killer, not an Indian killer. St. James Matamoros. Don't let, like we've been saying this whole series, don't let these type of paragraphs paint your picture in your head. They just popularize versions of history. As Moors, we do our own history. We don't take no body word for nothing. We just use their word. That's what they said. The Order of Santiago, a Spanish order of knighthood, originated from St. James' supposed involvement in the Battle of Clavijo. A wide number of Mexican settlements were named Matamoros by Spanish sailors in honor of their patron saint. So you see, they're gonna tell you what these things is. Take that with a grain of salt. But what we do know is they got many settlements under the name Moor Killer in Mexico. Adaptation of in Spanish America. You see, black people are people who make these videos talking about morals and stuff like that, and they want to be black people so bad that they got 5 hours videos calling themselves this and their own ancestors and themselves. That's what they're doing. They'll accept Spanish America being a thing, but you put Moorish America on something, they want to question that. But if there is a Spanish anything, that's a Moorish, because you got Spain coming into the scene 700 years after being Moorish Andalusia. Spain come, that stole everything Andalusian. In reality, can't change nothing overnight and claim everything and say it's Spanish now. If you only been around for a year, calling everything Spanish, with 700 years, everything being Moorish. So the iconography, like we saw in that picture, iconography, and the Spanish colonization of America as a rival force to the indigenous gods and protector of Spaniards from the indigenous people of America. He was depicted as a conquistador. Some more information. But when you go look at the stories of the so-called slave trade, they doing the same thing. They yelling Santiago to make all the Moors run all their huts or whatever they've been going at. And stuff like this is the reason why they fight back. The tribute of 100 virgins was a legendary annual tribute of 100 virgin maidens paid by the Christian kingdom of Asturias. And we talk about Asturias in the last videos, the northern part of Andalusia, what we call Spain and Portugal, to the Muslim Emirate of Cordoba. 50 were to be of noble birth and 50 of commoners. So they start fighting back because they been tired of giving away their daughters. Anybody would fight back after that. But at that time, we got Moors hitting that course and making them pay tribute. That's the reason why they want you to be black, that they are Indian or any other thing, because that history don't exist for those names or those terms. They create those terms and they write the history for those terms. The real history that they don't write, or they write and they try to hide from you, is the real history. And those books, they're known as Moors. Regardless of you talking about America, Morocco, Japan, Malaysia, anyway. France kept New France, sharing cod, which is the fish, with New Anglia, England, and New Sweden. According to Hurtado de Mendoza, a 17th century geographer, the coast was called Mediterranean. Right? At that time, the Mediterranean Sea was the northeastern part of the Atlantic, and the seas that we call the Great Lakes, in Galilee and stuff like that, Western Palestine, whatever, because it was the closest to Europe. Shasson, John I, after the skid of 1411, conquerors, so they baptized in these places, changing the names and stuff like that, calling it New World. But these Moorish lands, no matter where they're going America, Africa, and Asia. If you follow them, you follow the stories. Conquerors Keuda in 1415, ecclesiastical head of the Diocese of Morocco. So they put a Diocese of Morocco and Keuda and used that as a port of import products from America to Europe, to their places, using Keuda, whether that be the one over there or one being over here somewhere. He still deal with over here. All this we about to read. Ecclesiastical head of the Diocese of Morocco under the Goths. Possession gave him moral strength. In 1416, the king of Crista suppressed the Canaries, arriving at Cape Nam. So we're talking about 1416 in America, Juan I. 2 years later, Martin V, the only pope after prolonged ecclesiastical biography, so he riding over the Morocco biography, granted Portugal a crusades and a kingdom affairs and a kingdom affairs. which had its eastern border in Melilla and its western border in Cabo de Bojador, including the Kingdom of Jamaica. We're going to see that later. Discovered the island of Madeira in 1418. The Pontiff granted a crusade in the kingdom to the Portuguese, proceeding in distribution of 1430. Invested Juan I as sovereign of the Kingdom of Fez. We talked about that last video on Wikipedia. We're trying to say he wanted to be this Lord of Ceuta, but the record books say he wanted to be the Lord of Fez. And we see in the last video the extension of Fez on that map that they show with the pink going all the way up from Bahia up to Mexico. That's what Juan I talking about. The Castilians were left to, the Canaries were left to Castile, which is the other parts of America that we seen yesterday. It has circled spots with Wikipedia we're talking about with the Betancourt. The Azores were officially discovered by Gonzalo Verho in 1431. So all these discoveries and the stories is the Portuguese first steps into the American continent. And you go look these things up, they're going to try to tell you Africa, all the islands, the Azores, Canaries, the northern parts of Africa. That's what they want us to think. They're talking about Madeira. And in 1434, the islands were awarded to Portugal in 1435. America is that of the Indies island, being known in Europe American products long before 1492. Does not facilitate the task of finding their place of origin, especially in the case of species such as cotton, which accumulate everywhere. Abundant and vigorous in Cape Verde, it is given Egypt or India for its homeland, without realizing that if so, someone must have taken it to the Americas. Raw material of the Azores, we talk about that. The colored veils, in which certain Muslims cover their hair, appear in the tariff of 1491 and following as natives of Iberia. So inside the records, even coming from America, natives, but the record books say Iberia. We can't make it go back to 1491 and make it say America or Indian land and none of that shit. We only can go by what the records say. The truth. If it were a Mediterranean product, Bartolomé Colon would not have wielded them as a proof that his brother was in Paria. So that's even coming from Paria in South America. The case of the cake or ring is significant, or the cake or the indigo. Nicolas Lemery, an illustrious French chemist of the 17th century, calls indigo inde, assigning it to the West Indies, especially Guatemala. Commercialized by the Phoenicians like the purple. Vespucci mentioned it in his letters, forming in the ship cargo coming from India, which he played in Brazil. The text of Americo, I guess he's talking about Vespucci, are suspicious. Even more so are those of Leon the African. So Leon the African take part in reconstructing the history too for Rome, because he been a more who probably gonna call himself Leon El, another name like somebody would have had El Moro. When they get converted, they were changing themselves to El Negro, El African, El Africo. Just like we do today. We the African and we the black. We just do them in English. When African, we still say in Latin. But we go from more to whatever. Baptism. In church, in charge of moving the land of gold, which is in America, to North Africa, and he did that by writing descriptions of the Barbaria or the land of Moors, or writing books like that, but taking the place names from over here, completing the work of the lying cartographers, which is the people who've been reconstructing the maps. Forgetting the indigo plant as a plant with poor acclimation, he makes it prosper in such desperate contexts, such as the walled village of Bani Sabi. So what she been finding out is that his books ain't been matching up with the plants in the Dara River and stuff like that. None of the land were matching out, like rainforests and stuff like that. He been naming stuff like that in deserts and putting it in deserts, places with mountains, waterfalls, stuff like that. So this is an older map. We're looking at the areas going before we get up down to Peru. And on this map we see Casanare. I think I talked about this before, but Casanare is what Rome changed Mauritania to. Mauritania Casanare. But this in America. We see the Meta River, what we know in the Kingdom of Mecca, like we saw earlier. And the two great rivers in the Canaria, Grand Canaria, which we see the river of Canaria still right there on this map. And we see the Abed, the Edeba, and the Abana. The two rivers, when you look those up, and they got different spellings in the Canary Islands, but they put that over there and really from over here. Well, this map got a lot of stuff on it, but I think I'll talk about this before. I think. This John Cabot map, one of the earliest so-called Europeans coming. Some Wikipedia page say he been before Columbus, but they ain't sure. But his map got a lot of different place names on it that the other, hard to see his maps. It's hard to find a good map from him because of the place names. And not only that, the description of the people. According to this map, people like this ain't supposed to be in Africa until they get them and bring them here. But they already in America, North and South. On his map, he draw it. See? And this way you see, there's a mountain. You see they already got cities and shit. There's 15. That's one of the earliest maps. It's like 1500. They say the map of the world by Sebastian Capet. I thought I had the date. I think it's 1500. So that means 1492. 8 years later, he got his. So he been over here. So we ain't getting those stories of people getting bring over here looking like him. And I say the mountain line, which is Sierra Leone, the mountain of the lions. But this is in America off the coast of Brazil. We got the Maranon right there. Hard to see, but the Maranon River and the Rio de los Esclavos were supposed to be in Africa. That's the type of stuff you need a magnifying glass. You got Cabo Blanco and Arequipe. Cabo Blanco show up in the story with Sir Francis Drake dealing with the King of Affairs, Cape White. But now you got the Cape White over there, so but in the 1400s, the 1500s and stuff like that, well, Sir Francis Drake been about 16, going into the 17. So he on the late 15, I can't remember. But all he did been deal with what he calls Cimarroons in America. And then in parts of the book, he gonna deal with some of the Moors and Fez of Morocco. But we supposed to believe that he gonna over there and deal with them. Because they ain't supposed to be here and call to these people making these videos talking about Moors and stuff. In their mind, they brainwashed to not believe that because ain't no movies and no books, no propaganda suggest that. Stuck. Kwame. South America, Peru. Talking about gold and silver. read a lot of these, but we know we've been watching these. We've been looking at these, and all you see is Moors on boats and ships and shit. That's the Peruvian fishermen getting kidnapped that they're talking about. Look. And these the ones who in North America we see on the so-called runaway Negroes posted. These people just half naked and shit with the feather shit. So what Africa you talking about? That's already America. You talking about kidnapping them and shit on this. Talking about temples of the sun and shit. Sun and moon, we can look at that later. The star and crescent. And then one of these things talking about kidnapping the Peruvian fishermen. And we know who the Peruvian fishermen is. These guys. Under Indian history, they don't exist. Under Christian history, they Africans, slaves who come over here. I guess they get free and start wearing robes and running around fishing everywhere and shit, I guess. But under Moorish history, we can talk about it and it'll make sense to us. Because we ain't come from nobody else's perspective but ours. That's the war, but they expunging these expugnatio. They expelling people. So you already know who we getting expelled based off the Treaty of Tordesillas and what they say they're gonna do. They got a ship called Azores in the Morning Star. Yeah, right here said the wet took a Peruvian fisherman. Shit like that caused wars. And we're gonna see right here is the connection. When we see a blue flag, so you know red, white, and blue, all that come from the ancient world too. Everything's still connected. If you know, then you will see it every day. If you don't know, it'll just miss you. So Algiers and Giger. Got the blue, got the crescent with the blue and the red with the crescent. The red flag with the crescent, the blue flag with the crescent. In Spain, you got, in Andalusia, you got the pomegranate from Granada. Andalusia. Across from the street, you got a Castillo, which is a castle. They got a house, a trading house, across from the street. And this, you see, Castle, Castillo, and they got one right there. And you see the red with the star, Algiers, and the red with the star. I mean, with the crescent, the pomegranate in Granada. So, and everybody mind us where Moors from, these places. Now watch this. We got Nubia and Arabia, blue with the star, and the red with the stars. Now let's go to Brazil. We got the pomegranate, which is from the Medina Sidonia. You got the blue with the star. I mean with the crescent, and you got the blue with the star. And the Kingdom of Fairs. And you see Spain got holdings across from the street right now on this one. You see the blue with the crescent and the red with the crescent, red with the crescent, blue. This Africa, right? But why he's showing you is the Moorish Empire as an empire for real, as the sense of the word. You got kingdoms all over the world, especially in this area of the world, so-called African. And you see the Spanish flags and the Portuguese. You see that Portuguese flag, pay attention to that. So we go across the North and South America and across the northern parts, you see Spain. Then you see the star with the blue background. See Spain. See the the crescent with the blue. Like ain't nothing new from the other side. The whole world connected and nobody each other and everybody just being the exact thing that has to be done. Another blue with the that's why you say this the far West Africa. The crescent, the blue, you got the pomegranate. We see that earlier. And you got look like you can see that right there in West Africa. This Brazil though. In Venezuela, the northern part, see the islands right there. Now, I think you got Portugal right there. I think these both is Portugal mixed with them. Because Portugal will marry into your family, y'all got a connection like that. You see the same flag right there, and right there. Another one, Portugal. You see the lion of Judah. The red with the crescent. I think another Portugal, red with the crescent. That flag right there again. I can't even tell what that is, but that showing up on the other side and the side. Let's go right here. The eastern seaboard. Blue with the crescent, red with the crescent. See, people be making these videos talking about the ancient this and the ancient that, but they want to say what it. This, they won't connect everything to it. Because if you're saying this, the ancient Moorish kingdom, then the people Moors, right? Start with the thing you see. This in South America. We see that over the other side too. Some more parts of America ain't no different flags. This is an empire. It's a Moorish empire because I just showed you from the so-called what you believe is the Moorish empire, them little areas on top of North Africa and Spain. Well, all the so-called scholars want to act like that's what the Moorish empire consists of. And all these things you see, them ships in the border and all these maps too. They show you that ships out there. We see Mamarica in Egypt. They got the red and the blue mix with the crescent, which will probably symbolize a unified. Like they make videos all the time, say America is ancient Egypt, but they don't call themselves Moors. Why is that? Don't make no sense. Because Egypt obviously is an Islamic kingdom. Of Moors, always was. Mizraim, Mamarica, the MR in those two words, Mizraim, Mamarica, Mauritania, all come from the Lord, meaning the Lord, the land of the Lord. America, and this, the blue star, the blue background, the crescent. This is a Moorish kingdom flag, a Berber flag of Algeria. You see the star and the crescent. You see the star in there with the red background. Another one with star and crescent. Attacking these boys' castle. Showing the castles and the Moors. Even the football team, the Saracens, if I pay attention to the star and the crescent that we saw in all those flags in America. Another one. In the era of the Ottomans. History of the Tartars. Quarter flag of Lesser Egypt, Roman Gypsy, 1498. The coat of arms of the three Magi's of Balistar of Tarsus. So even from Tarsus, which was we know as America. Right? Same person they put on the runaway slave. I don't think. star and a crescent on it. Got the Muscogee Creek Nation and the Seminole Nation flag. Once you cut your line of understanding your history through the timeline, once you sever that timeline, that's severing yourself from the ancestors and the genetic memory. The allegory of America, but you see the red flag on the top of the flags when she held it out in the background. But we still see, this Christian king of Portugal, still Moorish. Just to give you a sense of looking at things, start looking at things of the color, robo law, and look at things, stay out the caste system in your mind, and look at everybody as nations. Stop looking at things as who did what or what somebody did to you. Because that's the past. You be the best person you can be today. Don't worry about what anybody did, because as much as you point a finger at something that you feel somebody did, they did twice as much or 3 times as much good too. That you ain't gonna point out. But we see Moors anyway probably falling under the black codes like this. Fall under the black codes, they about to get real messed up for them. And he helping implement them. Because they under the Christian way of running their colony. In 1570 in Lisbon. So we see conversion and baptism. He had to take off his robe. Now he like I say, the runaway slave poster, half naked. He's lamenting. He's sad, because he next. Said they even get their own and capture him. Oh no, he catching them, boy, catching both of them. 3 of them gotta take off their robes. They can be Indian now. After this baptism. Like them 2 back there, look like they in the cut. Oh, they dress like how Rome would have supposedly be. It's like the jungles of America somewhere. You see, they go around the world just baptizing Moors, the land and the people, because they're around the kingdoms. And that's an allegory to try to say wherever they went, the Moors that they baptized, they turned into what we at today. The Christian colonies as black people, Indians, Africans, whatever they decide to change them to. And he already got one with him. That looked like an American one. And the black friar, he the amalgamated friar from Sicily and Rome, who they sent out to teach the gospel to the rest of the Moors, convert them, and they own it now. The Lord own all their property. But this American is the allegory. So the allegory means they're going using depictions, but they're talking about kingdoms. And this is the West, this is the Africa and America. I guess Africa. But they got the child like America. This might be South America, Brazil. Because Brazil, they always show them looking like they from Morocco. Which in that day it was Africa. It's probably North America to them. It's probably Africa. You see Asia in the background, they're getting them too. You know, stand in line. Everybody could be under the Christian powers. And that's what we have to do. So in this book, where they're talking about the caste system of Peru, Mexico, America, you can see paintings But you got Moors, they already dressed like this here. But people would take these paintings and try to act like this a European Moor and try to diss them. Oh, you see the European Moors come here and take our land. Like, so you see in your mind you only gotta be, and even him, and even this guy, this allegory, he ain't naked. He got on a robe too. You're gonna see that a lot. This red cape. Like, man, they gotta put feathers on him and his hair now. They can write the story and get you to think that now he from here. They might have get him from Africa and did that to him. But in the history book, they paint him like that. Our modern mind gonna put that as Indian American. Oh, see, look at the back Indian. No, that's a more too. Baptized. You got them boys in South America. They had on clothes like this. From here, always been. They call them the Loba. Go look up Loba, the ship Loba in the Mohammed Bengali, which Bengali means the son of Ali, Bengali. Gali, the rich. But you got the stories of, supposed to be fiction, that you're talking about the ship Loba. And Lobos, the Loba, so-called wolf, is an American caste system term. So why is C.D. Muhammad ship called the Loba? So anyway, you see these people right here, they relabel these Moors, all kind of different terms, copper, mulatto. They call her the black woman, negra, Spanish for black, feminine, negro, masculine. They already paint her as black in the caste system. They got her as number 11 on the caste system. They got her as number 13. So her status higher than her status on the colony, Christian colony of this, I think this Peru. Like I say, all Mexico, but just basically South America. And they got her at the top of the list if she would hunt. So the Mora, the Moorish woman, her status very high. She created the mulattoes with him. If she get with him, the Moro, they leave off the caste system because they just want to fight him. They have war in America against Moros. So they wiping him out of history, changing his name to Indian and stuff like that. He Indios or Negros now. Coming from Africa. The darker he is, the more they'll give him Negro from Africa. The lighter he get Indios, he'll get that on their system. On this, go look at them, check out. A lot of them shit different from different parts of America. But this one had Mora on him in America. At the top. Which would make sense because it's her land. She probably got wealth. And he come to marry into her land and have a son inherit that. The Americans, 1812, the War of 1812. They hard to find history on the Americans. They take that away. But the 1812, the wars that they had, we put those wars in the Sea of Galilee in the Mediterranean. Like we saw earlier, which is the Great Lakes over here. They give us a half truth, half lie. African American settlers in Trinidad, so they marginalized them, just put that in Trinidad. But like I said, in the Treaty of Peace of Friendship, they're dealing with the Maricanos in the language of that time. That's another language, but this could be another language of that same word. They were African American Marines of the War of 1812, former African slaves. You know, they always got to put that in there for most, who fought for British agents, for the British against the U.S. in the corps of colonial Marines. Philippines, and then after post-war service in Bermuda. And also, we see the shores of Tripoli. We also put this as Tripoli because in the War of 1812, this happened in the Great Lakes. Near the Great Lakes is Wisconsin, and the secret societies of Wisconsin, they temple is the Temple of Tripoli. And you're dealing with a Moorish Navy, which we don't even got in the Moorish Navy today. They had one, they supposed to have been former slaves. Okay. So he said they trying to say how they dropped the A. They trying to explain all that to you, but we're doing history ourselves. They established company villages and land grants and shit. The reason why the A don't really exist because it's Maricanos. We just say America in our modern land, Roman. And that's one of the, they say they ain't know if he been Jim Hercules, Abyssinian, Alabamian, Ethiopian, or West Indian. But you're on the same uniform as these Americans, turban and affairs. This book, The Lawless Caymans, talk about it. The story of slavery, freedom in the West Indies Regiment. That's how they look. A lot of this, they don't talk about in American history, the popular American history. Another one, West Indian Regiment. Some more. They use the term West Indies and stuff like that, but don't forget the entire West Hemisphere had to use those terms in their books. And these the Morenos of West Indies. They got regiments too, but you gotta have your own regiments and shit. Over time, you just lose them, so you have forts and everything. You see at Rome, they got kings. They talk about kings, Moorish kings, even as Christians. So-called kings of Jerusalem and stuff like that, but we don't know what parts of the world they really talking about unless we go study these. I say there's Egypt and Tasnasa, Cleopatra, Julius Caesar. There's Lima, Peru, and New Spain on the side right there. They say Morenos Libros, a free Moreno. I mean, he been stole New Spain. So in earlier times, he's free, and he in Spain, New Spain, which is in America. Lima is Peru. I think they say 1834, 17. Can't see. Esteban. But you see, they say free brown or Moreno. But the United States take those same tactics. Like I say, they follow along with the Spanish did and just translated all that shit to English. Instead of Negro, they translate it to English, which is black. So, free black, free brown. New Spain is already using these terms. I mean, because under the law of the lands, Moros is where you've been, and you got your rights under. We got Africa and America. This Africa and this Brazil. And this Africa and this Brazil. the 17th and 18th century, we got the Malucos, was used to refer to an organized band of slave hunters, also known as the Banderas, who roamed the interior of South America from the Atlantic Ocean to the foothills of the Andes and Paraguay, the Orinoco River, invading Guarani occupied areas in the search of slaves. So that's the same story they give you in Africa, what happened, right? But they try to they'll say things like the Moors enslaved Africa. They come from the Morocco and northern parts, and they come into the Africa parts with a dark skin, right? The West Africa, sub-Saharan, and that's the same story they give you right here. The same story on the side. So what's really going on? What's really going on? And they're using the term Mamluku, which is Islamic. Mamluk, Mamluka. They from Brazil. They going down into the interior of South America looking for the same, doing the same thing in search of slave hiding. The Banderas yelling Santiago, going to war with who? Moors. They call this person a Carib. They give you the body parts as a reference to try to say the term is cannibalism and stuff like that. But all this is symbolism. Different symbolism in it, down to the plants and everything. But they showing you Brazil, South America as they portray it. They don't know people, they probably find people like that and name them and act like they know about them. So another one, all is from the same author. And this author gonna have the series dealing with South America, basically Brazil, where he been at. But our perception is you will see different stories with these pictures being used and people talking about as if they know this author or whatever and saying what they believe. Like this supposed to have been an African who got free himself when he come here or whatever. But this man from here. You see the band with the sword. It's like the Moorish. These are the people being hunted by the Mamluks and these Moors. See, she got the red band. It's like Toussaint. The red band. She got her tobacco in there. You already know the Moors in North America dealt with tobacco. We know that. Put the corn in his hand and the parrot symbolism. Parrot color, Indian, so-called African, but this means the abundance of America. But it is Africa at that time, South America. Look in the background, we see Moors working or whatever, and about to be dealing with ships and commerce. All that is part of symbolism. Another Mamluk. And they got some of them in the African story. Like I said earlier, the same stories. But they'll tell you, they've been slave hunting. They still writing history for everybody. In 1636, the Veras led a bandera composed of 2,000 allied Indians. So that right there already show you when you want to talk about where the Moors slave, man. You got 200,000 so-called allied Indians according to this Wikipedia page. They down with this enslaving the people in the interior. 900 Mamelukes and 69 so-called white Paulistas to find precious metal and stones and capture Indians for slavery. So you got Indians capturing Indians, right? They ain't talking about Moors yet. But in our history, all these Moors, most likely, probably said for the Paulistas, they probably the Europeans who over here with the Portuguese Moors. But I know these 2,000 Indians, they call it that, Moros in the real records in North Africa. To find precious metal stones and capture Indians for slavery. This expedition alone was responsible for the destruction of most of the Jesuit missions of Spanish Guiana. So they were destroying the Spanish mission churches and shit, and enslaving of over 60,000 indigenous people. So there you go. Between 1648 and 1652, Tavares also led one of the longest known expeditions from Sao Paulo to the mouth of the Amazon River, investigating many of the tributaries, including the Black River, Rio Negro, that ultimately covering a distance of more than 10,000 kilometers. Expedition traveled to Andine, Quito, part of the Spanish Viceroy of Peru, and remained there for a short time. Of the 1,200 men who left Sao Paulo, only 60 reached the final destination in Berlin. So a lot of crazy assumptions, but that's been going on that they don't want to talk about. When you ever heard anybody talking about Indians going to look for other Indians to capture? I thought the Moors did that in Africa. And then bring Columbus over here and then whatever, everything getting blamed on them. These people they call witches they self. But since this event happened in America, they have to use the term Indian, but they mess up when they use the term Mameluco. Should have used the term mulatto. That would have been more of an American version. Mameluco is what the Moors call the Mamluks of North Africa. Same painter. And you know we in Dutch Brazil. So if it's dress look Dutch, that means he is a Dutchman. You gotta look at Dutch Brazil. That's how he is. These people speaking that language probably from me, and got all that science setting up kingdoms under that term. But again, that's how he dressed. Everybody gonna say, "Oh, look at the foreign more." You don't know that. You had clothes on, so you had on these fine soap over here. You see, they call them lobos. This America. So more America. No feathers, claws. All these Moors ain't come from Europe. You from me. Selling clothes, buying clothes, world trade. What we killing me is that they making it seem that their ancestors had means to do nothing or think, or like they even really the savages that the Spanish paint Indians' ass. We ain't know nothing about mathematics, algebra, Bowden. So the Spanish bought everything, and the Portuguese, and give them language and everything. Look at this man, like a Don. On the caste system, they would have said she's an Indian and he's a Negro. But all these people could have been here for thousands of years before they make that caste system looking like this. You reset your own history, you believe in that stupid ass caste system. It's a reenactment of 1511 New Orleans, the beginning of the American Revolution. The stories be ignorant as hell. They be always saying these slave rebellions, but these people got arms and shit and flags. Where they get it from? The slave pawn shop. It's the banderites allegedly fighting the capturing the natives, and they whitewash everything in this thing. Nobody from Africa yet. In their mind. But it wouldn't be wrong or far-fetched to say all this could have been predicted after every dark-skinned people when the story started fit. Because even today, a group of dark-skinned police will come kick your door and take you too. No different. So they take you because the colony say he can do that. This is the army of the Andes Mountains, South America, Peru, in the War of Independence. Some more South America. It's a great book. And they say these Indians of Barbary are the barbarous Indians. Bulgaria. But you see they used to put symbols in there too. The parrot. And slave cargo used to show up as Negroes and parrots. Which didn't show up if it got from Africa because the Indian ain't never history ain't in Africa. Which they say Indian is a parrot, somebody who they call a parrot. In their slave documents. It's like they call it the one is a Negro. But they displaced them from America with that term. But if you find ships with cargo of Negroes and parrots, then that's bring up the anomaly. Because why are they together in that ship? Were you going to pick up Americans and Africans and bring them to Spain? So again, they call these Lobos and Negroes and Lobos. See, the Lobo. Loba. So a lot of history out there will talk about Lobos and Lobas that look like this in America. Dress like this. But you don't know that history because you ain't speaking Spanish, for one. Gotta go read about them. And two, they ain't dressed like the typical so-called American Indian. You can write anything on this and they'll trick you. African, American. All these Moors, they call him a Morisco. But ain't none of this overseas where they want you to think. They call her a Morisca. They probably would have called her Indian, but you probably been chewed up and turban out too much. Oh, that's a Morisca. That's another part of America. This one show you how the Moors lose their kingdoms. Them castles, them put them at the bottom. Start being black and start doing black things. And the castles can put them at the bottom. Along with the natives stole. All these natives, these the ones who stole off the colony, doing what they want to do, living how they want to live. So they exile them and fight them. Or dress them up and baptize them or whatever. And they become them. Or them. They hire up one of the lists. They give them the Indian term and put them over the docile ones who've been there. Just to break down the entire colony and control it. All these people they find at the colony with these different complexions, they just put a wedge in between them, divide them up and play with these people. Like you see, you still have Moors at the top. As long as they decide to mix them with them, they status been good. And that's sad. But we live like that. Tell the truth. So you see it was look at a different dress. Early Brazil. Crowns. And this, we can say, it's America, but it's not. No more of Algiers. It still can be America. We see the feather, the turban, the half-nakedness. Like they'll project that that's Indian style. If that's so-called Indian style, then the motherfucker with clothes on like him. You gotta say more of Algeria in the style of the so-called Indian. The thing that put none of that on us, let's just say Indian, people would believe it. But what I try to do is get your mind thinking like under those resets. Everything is clearer. And they talking about the king of the Indias. Las Indias. And don't even look like the islands. But this allegory of Europe and the allegory of Asia. An allegory of America, an allegory of Africa, where we can see all the similarities, especially with African American. With Africa is being depicted as all of Africa, from Africa to Peru. In North America is what they're dealing with on this. They got the conquistador there. Say he come to attack. I see he come to attack no boy. Yo, he come to attack Americans. They ain't going after taking Grenada. They ain't chase the so-called Moors in Africa. They come chase them here where they come from. You see, in this one right here, interesting too. See, he got a button down red coat. So this man, yeah. He could have been some paintings just like them, boy. Just like them. And take that off on another painting just like him. That's the same guy. He automatically become a European Moor when he put that coat on. He's still a Moor. You don't take that off and become Indian. Right? He's still a Moor. With that on or not. You just saying never seen what he coats. His clothes. He's too fucking hot. Where he from? Shit. Simple shit like this. It's black Indian. This can't be more. But like I say, that right there, you can put that on. I'm talking about this Moorish America, some more Moors dressed down with a poncho and everything. Just there. He's serving. He might be going slave hunting for Mamlukos. We see in New York, she got on the whole gown and turban like an Arabian. The fuck? And again, ports, commerce. The Mohawk, same thing. Man got on silk gowns and shit. Robes and shit. You damn right he knows about the Moors all over the world too. Another Mohawk. Dark as fuck. These people probably listed in book as kings of fairs in Morocco in books, but you don't know that because you ain't looking at that. You're looking across overseas. You're looking for the terms Indians and shit. Now you can't find it in boy history. Because his name Abdullah Muhammad. And he in 1200s America with a crown on. You lost as hell. Looking for your ancestors, but you let everybody shape your mind to what's up in those things. You just look for yourself. The South America. Even the just like the more North America. Got this red cape too. Shit. And even on us, the European kings has complexion to them shit. Carlos and them Felipe II. That we talking about in these stories. So either we gonna be men and just accept all our parts. The parts where we inventing shit like the Moors did, and the parts where we invade the fucking village, capturing motherfuckers just because we mad like today. We do all kind of shit to each other. So what makes you think we ain't doing that back then? That's what every nation, especially the European nation, had most wars out of anybody amongst each other. Always at war. So act like you were just sitting in America, living the best life with no science, just a laugh, language and shit. Nobody know who you was until Columbus discovered this motherfucker. Then everybody know who you was now. Get out of here. You see? That's what they want you to think. Oh, these Moors, these Indians, these Moors from Africa. They look dark just like these motherfuckers. To me. Keeps on and shit too. Turbans on the head and shit too. Like we seen in our books, they had a name for us over here long before Columbus was born. So they already know. So we coming over there. Like this. You see they got the star in the red background of us. They got the crescent in the red background of us. They got a flag with a turtle. Like the Iron of Tortuga, aka Haiti. So you know a lot of Moors there. So that's the Maranao, Brazil. Man dressed down. You know, we see that one earlier. And this right here we see in the book talking about America, we see another drawing of this painting, which the official paintings call him African, but we see a painting of this exact dress, everything in black and white, and it's talking about Peru. So like, so what Africa are you talking about here? We're talking about America in that drawing. Right? But the same person who draw this painting draw this guy. They've been in the same place. The same artist draw both of these paintings, but ain't no information on this artist. Nobody looking for all that. The European museum that hold these paintings like this, which got more paintings, they got some paintings with so-called lighter version Mongol type Indians too. So all that been in America, but the description, the caption been written by the people who own the museum who don't know shit. And they write Indian on this one because they can't say African because of this dress. So they write Indian on this one, they write African on the other one, as if the artist just decided to hop over to another damn lane. No, he been telling you the different people in America that he been seeing. Like this artist, they want you to believe that the one in the middle, he going to Morocco and draw the king of the Moors in the Orient. You see at the bottom, the king of the Moors in the east. But what we know is the Morocco in the east of America, the American Levant, or Orient. Because you're on the same shit as Montezuma, which is North America, and this is the other side of where he been. The other side is from Poniente of America, the west of America, Peru, king. And he's supposed to be in Morocco based off the caption, because our mind state. Because he sees the word Mo in the east. But pay attention to, look at his headband, his crown, all that shit matching with the other motherfuckers. In America, this is America. They'll tell you that Peru and Mexico kings. But his caption say, the king of the Moor in the east. So nobody will come and make videos talking about, oh, look, an American Moor. Brainwashed. You don't put the word in there, put any right there, it would have been cool. But either these guys shop at the same store, or they all on the same continent. And they all Moors. He's the Moors of North America. He's the Moor of the western parts of South America, and he's a Moorish king of eastern parts of South America. And the islands come with one of those kingdoms, and you can get the whole continent, which is the land of Moors. The Kingdom of Fez. So we can go through a couple of terms they take notes of, but the Portuguese history got some of the most realist history. The Lancados, the thrown out ones, were settlers and adventurers of Portuguese origin in Senegambia, Cabo Verde, Guinea, and Sierra Leone, other areas of the West Africa. Many were Jews, often new Christians escaping persecution from the Portuguese Inquisition, right? So those Moors coming to so-called Africa from Portugal. Lancados often took African wives from local ruling families. I might say that earlier. You see Portugal history. You got Alfonsos in Africa that they allegedly married into, securing protections and advantage trading ties. See, that's what it's all about. They established clandestine trading networks and weaponry, spices, and oftentimes enslaved people, which angered the Portuguese crown by disrupting the ability to collect taxes. So we talked about that earlier in the video, how they've been trying to put up laws against enslaving the natives in the kingdoms. Once the natives say, okay, we capitulate to being baptized, then now you can't enslave Indians because they down with us now. You could enslave them as Moros, baptize them. As Indians, we don't enslave them because we need them to work our mines and pay the taxes. We don't need them running away because we damn sure ain't about to pick all these cotton and shit. The Lustotropicalism was first used by Brazilian sociologist Gilberto Frey to describe the description character of Portuguese imperialism overseas, proposing that the Portuguese were a better colonizer than other European nations. It was theorized that because of Portugal's warmer climate and having been inhabited by Celtic Rome, Visigoth, Moors, and several other people in modern times, the Portuguese were more humane, friendly, and adaptable to climates than culture. But what it really means is that these Portuguese were Moors who already had know about African America, had been traveling back and forth and all that. The history book started to call them Portuguese and colonizers and shit. But everybody's story got their own story. It could have been a Moor from America, so-called Indian, get on the ship, go and set up something in Portuguese with Moors there, come back, her story calling him a Portuguese colonizer, but you dissing him and shit. Say he evil, whatever, but this man just go there for a little while, come back. He from here. We don't know these stories because we don't go deep into the details of the stories. We already deal with him, the Mestico. So they do say it translates to Mamluk, probably referring to the Iberian comparison of Swati people to North Africans. You see, they know that they're dealing with Moorish history. And we see that earlier, the Mamluks of Brazil. If you want to get real history, deal with Portugal and Brazil and shit. They'll give you some bones. What mortal means that they just associate the word with that. They're in error. Ofras de El Rey, offerings of the king, were Portuguese girl offerings who were sent from Portugal to overseas colonies during the Portuguese Empire as part of Portugal colonization efforts. The offerings were married to native rulers or Portuguese settlers. So you have Moors over here in Brazil getting them Portuguese versions, like we say, them 100 versions, some payments. So you ain't gotta look overseas and say, look what Moors did. Talk about yourself. That's in America going down, and in Africa. These type of stories. Preseros were the Portuguese landowners who ruled in a feudal-like manner, vast estates called prazos leased to them by the Portuguese crown in the Zimbabwe Valley from the 16th through the 18th century. As a racially hybrid community, the city always got to bring race in it because dark-skinned people were showing up and they messing with their story of these people being enslaved Africans and shit. By the merging new social political order and these prazos, look these terms up. Luso-Africans, when we say Lusitanians, we talking about that in the last video, are people mixed with Portuguese and African ancestry. But they say things like the Moors of Africa ruled Spain and Portugal and Lucy, the Iberian Peninsula for 700 years, but they gonna act stupid like these people ain't. Throughout that time, going back to Africa, going back to Portugal, going to fucking America, living in different parts, mixing with different people, making that shit. But they can come in modern times and try to act like these Luso Africans with their dark as hell speaking Portuguese fluently in West Africa, Brazil, whatever, and want to try to make it look like they get put in a slavery position from some pale-skinned Portuguese people. When you say on the other side of your mouth that North Africans are Africans, invaded and ruled the place for 700 years, of course, some people will be dark-skinned and speaking that language. And they're going to be wherever you perceive Portuguese to be at. The vast majority of Luso Africans live in the former Portuguese Africa, referred to as Lusofono Africa, comprising of Angola, Guinea, Cape Verde, Mozambique, São Tomé, Príncipe, Equinoccio, Guinea, Sazabo. A number of Luso Africans are also settled in Portugal. See, they've been there, they just ain't left. Where they are formed by racial minority. They call themselves Afro-Portuguese now instead of Moros like they've been Mouros in the Portuguese language. The ethnic identity arose from the 16th century as primary male Portuguese settlers, often Lencados, like we saw earlier, settle in various parts of Africa, marrying African women. So they're going to try to explain to you why dark-skinned people speak in Portuguese in any way. When you create the language and create all that years before. These events, they're talking about the 1700, 1800 type shit when they go into Africa later and start seeing these things, and they write about it their way. Instead of really looking into them. Yao John Ramalho was either degradado, that's another term they're using, or a shipwrecked sailor, uncertain which, who was left in southern Brazil. Ramalho established himself as a lesser chieftain among the Tupiniquim. So this guy probably dark-skinned. They always want to act like Africans shipwrecked off the coast of Brazil. That's how they always add that story as shipwreck. But since he's a chief of this tribe, that's amazing to them. They gotta say, oh, he come from South Africa. Gotta be. He ain't from there because of the skin complexion. Bullshit. Unlike the hostile bachelor, Ramalho helped the Portuguese establish themselves at São Vicente and later São Paulo. You see, Moors over here and Portuguese, they both probably dark as hell. Bachelor of Canania, which is another Brazilian place, a mysterious new Christian degradado, known simply as the Bachelor, abandoned on the coast of the sea. Abandoned again, so he must be dark skinned. Because if he'd been lighter skinned, they would have just said he been a Portuguese colonizer, conquistador, whatever, on the coast of Brazil, 1502. So that's too early for him to be in Brazil. So they gotta say abandoned. He went on to raise himself into a major chieftain again of the Carajo Indians around Canania in 1533. The bachelor famously led a raid to sack and destroy Portuguese colony of San Vicente. So they fight each other on that same port. The Moors, the Christians, and the Empire. Alright, so let's go through some of the books to get this. We talk about this, the Chronicle of Guinea. They got a translated version, but I guarantee you the original version speak different. They're gonna change terms. In books like this, they say against the Moors in the land of Moors. In the Portuguese version, Moros. See, the oldest version using the terms like this. You can find versions before these. You can find any writings before these calling you anything else. Let me know. But the oldest books calling you that. You see the degradados, gadores, pregadores, ornamentos, pregadores. If I get these and read these, he's talking about American. All these talking about America. In fact, all the sister books are going through to put together the story. Myself. All these books mention him. That's a great book right here. Islam and Muslims in the American continent. That's a good one we gotta get. What you call it, the natives, Moors, saying they come from the Moorish Empire and all this shit. It's right here talking about all the different connections of Seville and America through trade. You'll learn about how everything was actually right instead of kind of around parroting simple, childlike phrases all the time. But what happened? Get into the details, the date, the names. Trade and commerce. Some more books that talk about Estebanco and other issues. In their books, they paint him as the first person African in America. If they ask that on Jeopardy, they're gonna talk about him. The answer could be him. Even though that's ridiculous. When you see the video and make up, I'm gonna show you how he already been from America and come to another part. And they would use their words to prove that. So he said, and he, Josephat, joined himself with Azia, which is Asia, but in Moorish Latin it's Azia, king of Israel, to make ships go to Tarshish, and they made the ships at Ezion Geber, which is in ancient Canaan or Israel, and the ships. So we deal with a port city of trade and commerce in the ancient time using biblical references. Ships go to Tarshish. We use scientific anthropology. They say off the coast of Maine was inscriptions reading cargo platforms for ships from Phoenicia. Ships going to a place called Tarshish, like they act like they don't know where it's at. Like we said earlier, the whole continent was known as the Kingdom of Tarsus at one point of time. And we got evidence of inscriptions off the coast of Maine, which is basically the same inscriptions off the coast of a lot of different ports, areas in America. So we see the discovery of America as an outgrowth of the conquest of the Moors by the Spaniards. So all the history dealing with the Spaniard versus the Moors, that's American history. That's how you find the history of the so-called indigenous Americans. Their history is in this. History of the Portuguese during the reign of Emmanuel, containing all discoveries from the coast of Africa, which you know is parts of America anyway. So the farthest parts of China, you got the Sultanates over there too. Their battles by sea and land. So we're dealing with land and sea battles. So when you're talking about these, you ain't talking about American history. I'm not talking about Moorish history, your history. Their sieges and other memorable exploits with the description of those countries and particular account of the religion, government, and customs of the natives, including also their discovery of Azores and their wars with the Moors. So the two people who split the continent between themselves, the entire continent, their records dealt with Moors and their records. So you got books like this, and that show an partial description of Suriname upon the continent of Guinea in America. In another language, the same book, but in Africa, in the land of Guinea in Africa. Both of these books talking about the Guinea in America. But in this language, they calling that place Africa. So we're almost done. We're done. Let's finish the next one. We'll do this records lead up to 1492. Peace.